All right, recording has started.
Perfect. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our February Data Reporting Managers call. We have lots of great information for you this morning centered around incident management reporting. So I hope that you've had an opportunity to share the webinar link with those that have anything to do with incident management. There's nothing wrong with those involved getting the information from the ground. Um, we have our incident management reporting team here this morning, our newly defined team that includes Aveen working with us and helping us to get this information correct. Everything that we talk about this morning will be basically centered around incident management. Aveen is going to talk to us about the coding, and then Albert is going to come back and talk to us about the ins and outs, the intricates of the coding and the tool that we use to collect the data. We're going to talk about some reminders and we moved our definitions to the end of the PowerPoint. We will not bore you with reading definitions to you, so those will be available to you at the end of the PowerPoint for you to review should you have any questions or concerns about them. Without further ado, we are going to turn this over to Aveen to start us off with her portion of this morning's session. So Aveen, do you want to take control of the screen or do you want me to just advance the slides for you?
I'm going to try to take control, Carolyn,
Okay,
and let's see how it goes.
okay.
I just requested control. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
I'm
Fix my
looking
camera there.
hold on a second. Let me get to this
Okay.
other screen and give control, and you should be good to go.
Okay. So I am going to get ready to start. Let's see if it works well. Trying to get it to the slideshow.
Oh, right there.
I clicked on it, but I couldn't.
Are you able to see it from your end?
I am able to see it. I just can't
Advance it.
unless I click on it because it's not in the slideshow mode.
It
So I'm gonna
it's not
stop controlling and let y'all put it in the slideshow mode, and
okay.
then I'll click.
Okay.
Okay. Because right now what I'm seeing is just like the PowerPoint mode kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
see it on my end.
Okay.
Let's see. Are you able to see me advance the slides?
No.
No. Okay, hold on a second.
Okay.
Again.
Click that slideshow.
Okay. What are you? That's still the same thing that you're able to see?
Yeah, you might need to switch the display on the
Okay.
other window.
Yeah. Display setting. What do you guys see now?
Still just the PowerPoint with
Okay, so let's see. I don't know why it's acting
Mhm.
crazy this morning. Share. Let me put it in. It's not cooperating this morning. And I'm going to share. Share. All right, what do you guys see?
Okay. That is
Okay,
perfect. It's a little further, but I will back it up. Thank you,
okay,
Carolyn. I
sure.
appreciate that.
I can, or if you need me to, I can back it up
Right
too.
there.
Right there.
Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted you to at least see my face while I start the presentation. My name is Aveen Coleman. I'm the Discipline and Attendance Program Manager in the Office of Student Support. I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the information we discuss and how to code some incidents related to Table 5 and to ensure that you have all of the fields documented in IM. As a reminder, I know that you do use different softwares and platforms in your school district, but when we're discussing this information, all discipline data must go to incident management and Power Schools. So if you're using a different reporting, make sure your vendor is helping you with the proper export of that data. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is our IM guide. The IM guide is used to it has all the codes, it has all the instructions, it has any updates that we've made during the school term. If you're looking for a definition, if you're looking to see how to properly code something, you need the IM guide. The IM guide should be something you should have constantly. When you get this PowerPoint, when you click on that blue link there, it will take you to our website where the 2024 IM guide is now available. When we look at our training information, if you work with other projects that I work on, if you want the full incident management recording, I will also post this PowerPoint inside the Padlet. You would scan this QR code. It takes you to a Padlet. It has all the recordings that I've done so far this year, all the training materials. It also has that handbook in there as well. So as we move into what we will call New Year's data reporting, New Year's coding, as we've had our conversations on looking on what's required for Table 5, we realize that we need some additional codes, subcodes under the hearing section. These codes are not available for the 24-25 school year, but will become available in August. We will submit these to Power School in April so that this will be ready for August. We will add the new due process hearing code. We could not collect information based on related to a student disability or non-related to a student disability when that student was removed. We will be adding these 3 new codes. So you'll have under that hearing code, action code, you will now have moving forward in August of 2025, a due process hearing. That's for that due process hearing officer. Then you will have related to the disability if that incident was related to the student's disability. And then you will have another hearing code non-related to the student's disability. These are the 3 recommended codes so far for this school year. Please note that I will start collecting codes in the month of August, so they may be additional ones, but these are the ones that are directly related to Table 5 reporting, and they will be new for next year. You won't have them this year. Please understand that it will take us some time to get those processed. So as a reminder, all incidents should have the following: an offender, behavior, action, and duration code when you're coding incidents and incident management. Next slide. Okay. So let's talk about one of the common errors that we may have in incident management. When a student is expelled, they may have had a hearing prior to, and that incident may have been a suspension pending expulsion, but that incident is not complete for us until we get an expulsion or a final outcome on that incident. It can be an alternative school referral. It could be back to school on probation. It could be a host of things. But we have to know whether that student was expelled with services or expelled and no services provided. So what I've done here is show you how that looks in incident management. In incident management, you're adding an action code. And when you add that action code, there are two subcodes below expulsion. One is for services, meaning that someone is providing that student services, and the other one is for expelled, no services provided. So it's very important that when you're actually coding that you include this information if the student is expelled. And then you have to include a begin date and end date for that incident as well. And then there's the resolution date. And if that student is going to be expelled for the remainder of the semester, you have to select the duration code. For expulsions, you do not include an assigned duration and an actual duration because the duration codes takes care of this. But this is how, when you're coding that expulsion incident, that if you've done all of these things, you won't get a level data error and you won't get an error from the State Department stating that that information needs to be corrected. Next slide. Okay. So our next area of concern is when we're coding incidents as suspensions pending expulsions. We know that students have the right, due to state statute, to have an expulsion hearing. So that student may be suspended for 10 days prior to that expulsion hearing. So you would code that suspension pending expulsion. You would give the actual begin date, end date, the date that was actually taken care of at the school. You would include the duration date. You would include the assigned duration date and the actual duration date. But as a reminder, if you have any incident that has a SUX, pending expulsion, or an SUPC, pending parent conference, those are not final outcomes. We still need a final outcome. After that hearing, was the student suspended? Was the student expelled? Was the student referred to the alternative school? You have to go in and complete that incident with a final outcome once you get that information from the hearing officer. And you can refer to slide 9 that lists some examples of outcomes, but you can also refer to the incident management guide to get additional information. Next slide. So let's talk about the hearings. So inside incident management, there are 3 different types of hearing. There's an administrative hearing, meaning that that was just with the principal. And then there's the expulsion hearing that was with the hearing officer. And then there's the manifestation determination hearing that's with your IEP team. Okay, when you code a hearing, if a hearing takes place, there must be a final outcome on that hearing. So if it was an example, this is just used for the PowerPoint. We had a hearing. It was a manifestation determination hearing. That hearing was conducted on 1/8. So it ended on 1/8. By the end of that hearing, you have a resolution. What's going to happen from that hearing. The duration code is not populated here. The assigned duration code is not populated here. And the actual duration code is not populated here. We want you to populate what actually occurred. So if that student is expelled on that expulsion, there should be a begin date, an end date, actual resolution date, the duration date, and that's it. If that student was sent back on probation, you would have an action date, end date, and how long that probation is. But we need that final outcome in addition to the hearing. So it's not, I put the hearing in, take it away. You keep the hearing on the incident, and then you add the final outcome. Next slide. So when we talk about final outcomes, so these are all the codes that will generate an error for you. When you have a suspension pending expulsion, you have a recommended for expulsion, no final outcome, a hearing, any of those three listed that we just discussed, and the suspension pending parent conference. Most districts like to refer to that as an overnight suspension, but as I train and I remind them, there's no such thing as an overnight suspension. I can only be suspended for the instructional day. I cannot be suspended overnight. You can only remove me from the school setting during the instructional day. Okay? So when we see incidents like this, these are not complete. We're expecting final outcomes such as expelled, no services provided, or expelled, overturned. We've had expulsions overturned, arrested. We've seen some of those, and incidents that are gun are very severe. A referral to the alternative school, and alternative placement. You may even have a conference on that as a final outcome. You may also have an out-of-school suspension, services provided, or no services provided, or a probation, where that student is going back on probation. We do have cases like that, but we cannot, if we only see the SUX, when we see that in our world in reporting, we still have to report this, but we have to report it as a suspension instead of the true outcome of an expulsion because it wasn't coded. So it's very important that you code the final action because we have to default these based on what other codes are on there, but we need to report that accurately. So if that student was expelled, we need to report that expulsion. Next slide. So for some of your high-level offenses, as a reminder, when you're looking at weapons, 789 is a weapon code. It is a behavior for weapons. You can't have an incident without a behavior. So when you look at the number 789 in PowerSchool, that means the behavior. Then you have object codes that are listed here. When you have a weapon of a gun, which is a handgun, 781, you should have the 789, which is the behavior, and then you would have 781, the object code, coded on that incident. If you only have the 789 and you typed in the field, student had a weapon, we're not going to drop that in the proper bucket. It's not going to be reported accurately, and it's going to generate an error in IM for you on level data. So it's very important that when you use the 789, you make sure that you have an object code that is related to that weapon, whether it's a gun, whether it's a knife, whether it's other weapons. And other weapons encompass a whole bunch of things like tasers, razor blades, pepper spray, a whole host of things, Chinese stars, things like that. But you have to make sure you have a 789 first, which is the behavior, and then our other codes of the weapon. Next slide. So here again, I want to make sure that we highlight this because if you have any of your unilateral removals because of the weapon, I want to make sure that we point out that the behavior is 789. In Power School, it's add the object, you're selecting weapon, and then you're selecting the code. And then you're adding your action code on that incident as well of that IAES, if that's what occurred. This is an example for making sure it's reported properly when you have those situations, because this is a high level code. Next slide. The other codes that they are pulling for weapons is the 787 handguns, 788 rifles. It is also an object code, and it's one of those high level codes. So if a student actually discharged their weapon on campus, these are the codes that you're using. And those are high level codes. And you have to make sure if it's one of those IAES removals that this code is reflective as well. Next slide. So what did we do? We wanted to make sure everybody understands the unilateral removal. The team later will explain how that is used in the reporting, but any IAES removals that are unilateral, these are the things we're expecting on those codes. We're expecting a begin date, an end date for that incident, the resolution date, and the duration. If it's going to be more than 10 days, then you include that information there. So we want to make sure those pieces are coded properly. Next slide. This is how an incident looks coded properly with all the things that should be on here. This student brought a weapon to campus. It was a handgun. The student had a hearing. It could have been an expulsion hearing or a manifestation hearing. That when you select manifestation hearing, this expulsion would then say manifestation instead of expulsion. That student was suspended for a period of time while you conducted those hearings. We need that suspension on that incident. Then there may have been a unilateral removal for that incident. We would need that on there. If the student was, the final outcome on that incident was an expulsion with services provided, we will need that on there. But whatever occurred on that incident, we need that to happen. And the reason why you see we have the weapon code, because the weapon code is the only place where you can attach actions to. You can't attach actions to object codes. This is an object code. The 781, you see it here. It's stated that it's an object code. In IAM, you need a behavior, and that behavior is used to tag everything that happened on that incident. If you have more than that happened on that incident, you can add it. But these are things that we do need to have on that incident if they occurred. Want to make sure that is clear for everyone. Next slide. So what about our students who are placed in school? Inside Power School, remember that it is under suspension, and then you have to select whether there was services provided or services not provided. You still have to complete that begin date, end date. So if you're using a secondary software, make sure they are populating a begin date and end date, then your resolution date, then your duration. This child was suspended for 3 days, and then we add our assigned duration and our actual duration. All of these fields must be populated. If you populate these fields, you should not get an error, because in school suspension is usually a final outcome on an incident. Next slide. So with your out of school suspension, if the student was suspended, placed on out of school suspension and services were provided, you would select that. You still have to make sure you have a begin date and end date, the resolution date, the 3 days that matches this. Hopefully that match 3 days. If not, you know this is for training. So I'll update that. And then your duration days, assigned duration is 3, and your actual duration is 3. In the PowerPoint, I show you how to make sure that if you had an assigned duration and the actual duration change, what fields should be updated. And I'll save that for later. Next slide. So what about a bus suspension and you don't provide any services? And the student may have been just suspended from the bus and there's no transportation provided. Okay, you have to make sure that the bus suspension is coded, the no alternative transportation, a begin date, an end date, a resolution date, and how long that student is going to be suspended from the bus. And this represents 10 days. But what if that student has a bus suspension plus an out of school suspension? You then have to go back onto that same incident and then make sure that you're coding the OSS, which is out of school suspension. You're going to tell us whether that services is provided or whether no services were provided for that student. But for this incident, if it was just a bus suspension, you would only have the first 2. If they were suspended from the bus and suspended from instruction from the school day, you would have to have the bus suspension, whether they received their transportation and how long they were suspended for, and that's another action code in incident management. Next slide. So you have incidents that you may code for drug offenses, and they may be an IAES. These are the 3 codes that we use for drug distribution, which is 570, drug usage, which is 575, and 580, which is drug possession. So this may be an IES where someone is making a removal. But if that student is also suspended on that incident or referred to the alternative school program as a final outcome, we will need that information on that incident as well. Next slide. So if you have an incident where a student has physical injury, the highest injury on incident management is 510, aggravated assault. And that's the one that is required to have physical injury on it. In order to code that physical injury, you will have to go into that participant's information and then add the participant's attribute. And then here you would select whether that injury was major, minor, or limited. Remember, for an aggravated assault to be a major injury, based on our guidelines, it is cuts, stab wounds, bullet wounds, someone seeking medical attention, they've been knocked unconscious, they've been placed in the hospital. It is 510 is our highest level in coding. It is not a hit, kick, push, punch. It is the highest level. Someone has been, the nurses come in, they've gone to the hospital, someone has gotten stitches. It is very serious. It is not our lowest code to use. So I want to make sure that when you're looking at that, when they're pulling aggravated assault, you're telling them that you had a serious incident that occurred. Now, I ask districts to make sure they're reading the definition and they are just not coding minor pushes, incidents because we have a code in there for hit, kick, push inside of incident management. This is the highest level code. Next slide. So we do have some cases in your schools where a student may have been recommended for expulsion or recommended for suspension. And sometimes parents withdraw them before that can actually occur, or withdraw them during the suspension. You have to go in, if you have any of those cases, to say withdrawn prior to action, meaning withdrawn before the expulsion hearing or withdrawn before that out of suspension. We have a code for that. We don't have a lot of cases like this, but we have had a few over the past couple of years. So we wanted to make sure that we're document what occurred in case the student came back the next semester, so that you know that that incident was not complete. Next slide. So this is when I talked about if we had a student that is assigned 5 days of out-of-school suspension, but the suspension is reduced to 3 days, how should this be recorded in incident management and in attendance? And the reason why I added attendance here, I know you may be the discipline person and you don't work with attendance, but I need you to notify the attendance person when you're changing an outcome on an action. Especially if it's reducing the amount of days, so that they are not getting a whole bunch of errors. Next slide. So what you would do is make sure that OSS duration and incident management is updated. The OSS duration date and IM is updated. And then you would give the attendance clerk the days in which that adjustment was made so that they can adjust the attendance code. Because what they're going to do is remove the OSS for the days that the student will not be serving. So if they received 3 and it went down to 1, they're going to remove the other 2 days that the student will not be serving and it's expected to be back on campus. Next slide. So this is how that incident looked prior to, meaning the child was suspended. They were placed out for, well, that's really 2 days. That should be 3. For 3 days, and they had 3 assigned duration days and 3 actual duration days. But if that was edited and that time was reduced, you would go back, update the end date here because it's only 1 day. You would update the duration code, and you can add notes here to tell why that change was made. Maybe there was a meeting, maybe the IEP team met, maybe there was a meeting with the parent and principal. You can make your notes here on why that date changed. And then you can add the 3 will already be here. You would then go in and just update this to 1. But these must match in order to make sure we're coding the proper amount of days on that incident for that student. Okay, so instead of having 3 suspension days on that incident, the student will then now have only 1, because the duration code was updated, the action date and end date, the begin date and end date was updated, and the actual duration was updated. Next slide. So in order to help you, we already have level data error reports. Here are the listings from level data error reports that's there to help you. So if you're missing an action code or a weapons code, if you click on these, it will give you the list. It will tell you which incident it is on. Also, if you're missing a physical injury code, that means you have an aggravated assault and you did not select that physical attribute. It tells you the error and it gives you a listing. If you have invalid pending expulsion, it gives you a list of all those incidents that don't have a final outcome. And if you update them, this error will go away and you won't have that issue on table 5. If you have an invalid weapon type, that means you only have the behavior code of 789 and no additional information. It gives you an error and it tells you what needs to be corrected. Next slide. This is the IM tab in level data. It also gives you hearings. If that hearing is just you have a student behavior of fighting 009, and then you have a hearing and you don't have an additional outcome on that hearing, it's going to put that as it doesn't have a final outcome. So it's missing an additional action code. If you click on that, make the corrections, you shouldn't have any problems with your data set. Invalid pending parent conference, that one that districts like to state that it's an overnight suspension. As I remind you, there's no such thing as an overnight suspension. But if you correct this code and make it a parent conference that took place, then you will not have any errors with that incident. The recommended for expulsion action code, missing a secondary action, meaning that recommended for expulsion, but what is the final outcome? Was the student expelled? Was the student sent to the alternative school? Was the student sent back to school on probation? What was the final outcome? These are the errors that help reduce problems with your table 5 reporting and all reporting for discipline itself. So please make sure that you're using these reports on an annual basis to make sure that you're reporting information accurately. These are here. These level data reports are here for you to use every day before the data gets to the State Department. So you can use this constantly with no problems. And if you use the ones that are selected in red, they will make sure that what you have for table 5 is correct. Next slide. So when you click on an incident, there's always a description when you click on additional information. When you click on that tab that says you have an error, you click on the actual link and then you click on close. Well, this says close. It's going to say additional information. It tells you what's missing. Like on this incident, it's telling me that I have a duration code that's missing, and it's showing it here that I have a suspension, but I don't have a duration on this incident. So it gives you how to fix it right here inside of this resolving those errors. And then it shows you what's missing. And that is done throughout. I didn't do it for each one. I just did one example. So if you go to level data and you have errors and you're like, well, I don't really know how to fix it, make sure you click on that little blue tab and it's going to give you a drop down and it's going to show you what's missing. Next slide. Again, we are at the 135th day. It took us a while to get IM reports this year because we are using Ed5. We have published 2 reports so far. We're getting ready to publish another report in the next week or 2, but you should have a 90th day report. We've had some things that we adjusted based on district feedback and because we're using Ed5 for the first time. The 135th day report came out about last week. We will be updating that report again during the 135th day based on districts updating data. And then during the 180th day period, that's from May until the second week in June, we will be updating data daily, once a day during that time period. We ask that you double check your data, triple check your data. If your accounts aren't right, please send us an email to the discipline box and then CC your special education mailbox. But if I am not aware that there's something off with your accounts, we can't get with our programmers to see what the issues are. So we ask you to make sure you're reporting that, and please don't report it on the last day for collection. That's why we post this information out at all of these points. This year we posted at the 90th and the 135th, and that's why we're posting again 135th data in March, and we'll be posting it again in April, and then we will do our normal May every day, June the first 2 weeks every day. Do not wait until the last day. That's what I can constantly tell you, because once we're done with this report, we do not make any changes. We pull that data file at what we would say the last close of business on that day, and then that data file is used to process your Table 5, your school report card, your any other state and federal reporting, even your OCR reports that your district person is taken care of for you. But we cannot make changes. We cannot make changes to your discipline data. All of that comes from PowerSchool. If it's not correct in PowerSchool, we will report what we have. That's why we give this long window, and we constantly send data out to say, hey, if there's a problem, fix it, because level data is there to give you that opportunity to fix it. But we also want you to make sure that we're reporting accurate data based on what occurred in your school. Now, if you didn't report it, we can't report it. So that doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we need you to report all those incidents that happen in your school. That's the only way we get it. We get it directly from your PowerSchool nightly runs every night. So if you're having problems, please let us know. So you need to check those total number of incidents, total number of suspensions, and check those quarterly. And if you want to discuss discipline to me, send it to the discipline box. If you want to talk about attendance, send it to the attendance box. And dropouts, we've closed that out for the school term. We'll start that back up in August. But if you do have questions about a student who's a dropout, who's not, send it there and we can assist you. But please make sure if it's discipline related, that if it's a problem, send it to the discipline box, send it to your box for Carolyn and the team. I've enjoyed working with them for the past couple of weeks to try to make sure we get what they need and get what you need to make this coding process a little easier for everyone. Again, we are working with Ed5 for the first time, so we will have a couple bumps this year that we're not accustomed to with our old process. So if we send you an email, say, hey, check on this, please check on that for us and give us your feedback. Again, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I will be here to answer them. Carolyn?
Carolyn, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Just didn't want to cooperate this morning. Adine, I heard you reference earlier that the data is typically is finalized the second week in June, and it used to be the third week in June. Is that still what is the actual date where the data is finalized for incident management? Can you clarify that, please?
Usually it's June 13th. It used to be June 20th, but with some of their data process, last year they moved it up to
Okay.
June 13th. If it's going to be extended, it'll be till the 20th, but right now it's June 13th, unless they tell me differently from that
Okay.
office. It's from ORDA. They set the time frame for
Okay,
the
thank
data
you.
collection.
Thank you so very much. And that is something that we will need to update on our slides that's coming down the pikes. Thank you, Aveen, for that information. It's been very, very helpful. We're going to move on now to the Table 5 reporting. This, once again, as I stated a few minutes ago, I don't know, Aveen, could you move your cursor for me, please? Thank you. The Table 5 report, once again, it is our students with disabilities removals from their regular education setting environment. This is reported by all districts, and we will need to make this update on the slide as to when it is finalized. As stated by Aveen, for the 24-25 reporting year, data must be finalized by June 13th. So we do want to make sure that that is updated on the PowerPoint before we send it out to the districts. If you have any questions about PowerSchool within your district, please consult your incident management coordinator. We don't know when we will have the final copies to the districts, but we're hoping if the data is finalized in June, we're hoping to have it to you guys no later than the end of August so that you could do whatever you need to do on your end. Once again, the disciplinary categories that we are required to report for Table 5. Section 1 is the unilateral removals to an interim alternative educational setting by school personnel. And we have Section 2, which is an IAES removal by the hearing officer, which we now know is the due process hearing. Section 3 is our out-of-school suspensions. Section 4 is our in-school suspensions. And Section 5 is our total disciplinary removals, and that encompasses any removals from their regular education setting is included in Section 5. And Section 6 right now is our expulsions, which reports students with disabilities as well as students without disabilities. And you can find the definitions for all of these at the end of the PowerPoint. We did add into this section the behavior code, the action code description, which is the subcode, duration codes. Those are required elements for Section 5, as well as the disability, race, ethnicity, gender, and our multilingual learners, which is formerly our ESL students. Once again, to gain access to the ADD reports, please talk with your district's PowerSchool coordinator or web access coordinator to grant access to the role. Your district can have multiple users. We do encourage those who work with students with disability, the data managers or data districts coordinators, SPED directors, to request access to the incident management system so that you can see this report and you can stay on top of it and see the data as the year progresses. And next, we're going to have Albert Roman to talk to you about the tool that was created and how we calculated those the data for those reports.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is Albert Roman. I was basically in charge of creating the tool that some of the districts have actually helped us in developing. There were some changes that we ran into, or some hiccups that we ran into with the original tool, because of the fact that it was using an obsolete report. So there were instructions to obtain I guess an incident management report from PowerSchool that was no longer being updated. So we needed to actually work with what reports come to you for incident management from Aveen's office. So in making that change, we had to inform the districts that the old tool that was developed was obsolete. But there is a new tool that is currently being used at the State Department now to accumulate all of this data from that report. So initially, districts were supposed to be sending us their IM information or their discipline data, their Table 5 data, excuse me, via templates that they had to submit over to us, and we would disseminate the data that way. But now districts are no longer responsible for, or no longer needing to do that, because we can derive this information from these IM reports now. So in order to do that, I was given the task to develop this tool so that we could get that information and have it ready for federal submission, but also to report out to districts. So the tool now is working with the updated report. But with that, since of course this is our first time doing this, we ran into some issues with the report that's actually coming to you from Aveen's office. Mostly just the additional codes that Aveen previously talked about incorporating as far as the hearing officer codes, that the results or the final outcomes for manifestation determination type of incidents. So we had to kind of accommodate for that. And we made the tool able to work with that data for the 24-25 school year. So all of the information that you're going to be seeing here is for the 24-25 school year. But by the 25-26 school year, the next time around, when we have these additional codes implemented and corrected into PowerSchool, we'll be modifying the tool so that the districts will be able to use it on their end as well. So for right now, the original Table 5 analysis tool that was sent out to districts, I believe it was sometime later or late last year, is no longer used. It's pretty much obsolete, so don't worry about using that. But the tool is designed for you guys to kind of take the incident management report that you get and disseminate your numbers that way. If you can go back to the previous slide, Carolyn. All right, so for section 1, it's the unilateral removals to an interim alternate education setting by school personnel. We will be looking at all of your action code IAEs, and it excludes any action codes for HRO which were specific to hearing officer removals, which fell into section 2. So this is just for your reference. This is just letting you know exactly how we are disseminating this data for this section. For section 1A, when it comes to the number of children, it's looking for the big 3, the behavior codes for drugs, weapons, and serious bodily injury. And those behavior codes come over, those are the main, that's a required field as a behavior code, and it will include all of that information on that record. So for sections 1A, it includes all of them because it is the total number of children, and it'll remove the duplicate state IDs for those children. But for 1B, 1C, and 1D, where it dives deeper into the number of removals for drugs, weapons, and serious bodily injury, it will only be looking at those specific codes, which is 570, 575, 580 for the drugs, the 780s for weapons, and the 510, 520 for serious bodily injury. That's how the tool will be disseminating those records to place into those fields. All right, next slide. All right, so for section 2, it is currently pending and under review, but as you can see, it will still be looking at those main high-level codes in incident management to count the number of children that should be placed into that category. Again, since this is the number of children, we're removing all duplicate state or student IDs. But further clarification is going to be implemented into PowerSchool in order for us to correctly count the number of children that should be within this category. From what we were looking at and from what we had discussed with several districts, there isn't a lot of students that fall within this category, but we need further information in order to find out the final outcome for some of these hearings, for these specifically for removals based off a hearing officer determination in order to count these students correctly in section 2. So for section 3, 3 is out of school suspensions. It's looking specifically at action codes BSS and OSS. And this was another thing that we kind of needed to work on with across departments here with Aveen's office, because the incident management report that you guys get has the BSS and OSS as its own action code, but it should technically be under the SUS action code. But currently, since that's the way that it's coming over, that is the way that the tool is disseminating that data. It's looking specifically for action codes BSS and OSS for bus suspensions and out of school suspensions. The action code descriptions or subcodes that it's looking for, this is how it's coming over into in the report. So you probably see it that way as well on the report that you receive from Aveen's office. But these are the ones that we are particularly looking for to place into the correct category 3A or 3B. All right, and then 3A specifically is for children for the total duration of those incidents ranging between 1 and 10 days. And 3B, of course, is greater than 10 days. All right, next slide. Section 4 is similar, but it's a lot cleaner because it is falling under that main SUS action code, which is the main code that we're looking for in those entries for section 4. And then all of section 4 is looking for either whether or not those children received services when they were suspended or did not. So that's what those action code descriptions or action subcodes are, ISN and ISP. So for 4A, of course, same thing, removing the duplicate student IDs because it's basically the total number of children that are falling in that category, ranging between 1 day and 10 day. And then for B, it's anything greater than 10 days. Next slide. All right, so section 5 encompasses all disciplinary removals, and this may be subject to change depending on the changes that are upcoming in PowerSchool. But currently, our tool is looking for these specific action codes, which you've probably already seen or referenced in the previous sections. It is excluding a certain number of action codes that should not fall into this category, but again, that may be subject to change. 5A is just the total number of disciplinary removals, and that's specific to incidents, not the number of children. So this one is removing any duplicate incident IDs that are coming over on those records. And then for the rest of it, we're looking for specific time frames. So 5B, 5C, 5D, all ranging within a certain time frame of equaling a day after the total duration has been rounded. Section C is between a day and less than 10 days, and section D is anything greater than 10 days. And all of those are removing duplicate state or student IDs. All right, so for section 6, specifically for expulsions, tool or the analysis is looking for specifically for EXP and whether or not those incidents or children receive services or not. So we're looking for any records that have EXP. We are excluding the action code description of expulsion because it is not letting us know whether or not that student receives services or not. So if any records come over that way, we can't count that. So we really need to know if the incident involved a student getting expelled, we need to know whether or not that student receives services or not in order to put them into the correct categories for federal reporting. Okay, so this is again a count of the number of students, and this category encompasses all students, not just special education students. This is the one category in our report that encompasses all students and whether or not they received services or not. And yeah, it is basically looking at both categories, students with disabilities and without. All right, next slide. I think that was it for my section. Again, I wanted to remind everyone that the original tool that was developed for district use is currently obsolete. We had to make some changes because the report that we were using for the tool was changed, and then we found some additional elements that needed to be incorporated into PowerSchool for us to be able to appropriately count the records into their appropriate categories. So right now, the modified version of the tool is being used at the state level, and that is how we are creating your Table 5 report as of right now. But the updated tool for district use should be available for the 25-26 school year when those new codes have been implemented into PowerSchool. So in the meantime, for the 24-25 school year, what we were proposing is to send out quarterly updates, or I guess the quarterly reports, so that you guys have plenty of time to check your information as we are disseminating it at the state level. And you guys have plenty of time to make any corrections that you need to in PowerSchool before that final submission in June. All right, I think that was it for me.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Just as a reminder, I thought we would, we do have a couple of more slides for you, but it's not going to take the 2 hours that we thought it was going to take. But we will open the floor for questions should anyone have any. Just a reminder that our meetings are now on the fourth Thursday, and our next meeting is going to be March 27th at 10 a.m. About the systemic verification checks, for the February submission, we focused only on indicators 11 and 12 to give the more time to get the corrections within the report squared away. So for the February submission, we will focus only on 11 and 12 for those districts who did participate in the systemic verification check. And I do need to take this time to thank you as we work through this, because this is our first time around. So we want to make sure that we're able to document anything that's that may not be calculating correctly within the report. So thank you for those who did participate in the systemic verification checks for 11 and 12. For the next systemic verification check, which will be April 11th, we will focus only on indicator 7. So for that one, you do not have to do 11 and 12 again. We should have the results for 11 and 12 back to you prior to the April submission for indicator 7. And I will say that if you are encountering any errors or issues within the system, please go ahead and submit that systemic verification check, that's Zendesk ticket, I'm sorry, so that they can put it on their radar. It just in case it is something that they have not seen before. So I do appreciate your emails letting me know, but we also need you to go ahead and submit those Zendesk tickets so that it can be on their radar. So thank you guys for that. A reminder for indicators 8 and 14, we did move those submission dates as well. We want to make sure that our reports are as clean as possible. And so we are submitting those dates to give frequency between the submissions to make sure that those are right or correct. What you are submitting for indicators 8 and 14 is basically demographics information. We then take those information and disseminate them so that surveys can be completed. So on the screen, you will see the required demographics that we look at for those reports that needs to be a part of your submission. In particular, we want to make sure that there's good contact information, address, phone number, or email address. We use the parents' email address for indicators 8 and students for 14. I will remind you that we do know that the student's address that's in PowerSchool is specific to PowerSchool. So once those students are gone, they no longer have access to that. So as you are having those final IEPs for students with disability, see if you can get a good email contact for them so that when it's time to send out the surveys, we do have that information to be able to contact them. For indicator 8, our reporting districts are Abbeville, Aiken, Anderson 3 and 4, Calhoun, Chester, Florence 3, Greenville, Greenwood 51, Horry County, Jasper, McCormick, Newberry, Richland 1, the Governor's School for Arts and Humanities, as well as Williamsburg. Those are the districts that will be required to submit Indicator 8 for the 24-25 reporting year. Others are welcome to submit, but for our federal reporting, these will be the districts that we primarily focus on for those submissions. Okay. Once again, this is our contact information for our monthly calls. Remember, as a reminder, to update the special education role for the special education directors, secondary contacts, as well as the data reporting managers within the DEEM system as folks come and leave. We want to make sure that we're getting the most recent contact information for them. And we pull that information from Deems. I typically do a download at the beginning of the month only. And with the understanding that on the next month, should there be anyone new to that system or to your district, we get their information with the next month's submission. Okay. Once again, we will add today's PowerPoint as well as Avine's PowerPoint into our resource locator. We try to put all of the information there so that you could always go back and have access to those information. Once today's recorded is converted, I will share that with you in our weekly updates when that link is available. Okay. As always, if you have any questions for us, please send it to our generic email address, which is specialeducationservices@ed.sc.gov. Should you want to contact any of us on the data team. And that pretty much concludes our PowerPoint for today. The remainder of these slides from slides 52 through 63 are all definitions. We moved it to the end. We did not want to bore you with reading the definitions. So when we share the PowerPoint, feel free to look at those definitions for yourself if you have any questions. And now we're going to open the floor to see if anyone have any questions they would like to ask.
Okay, I have opened the floor for any questions. If participants want to go ahead and unmute themselves and ask, you can do so now.
I do see a question in the chat. Indicator 8 is not due tomorrow. Indicator 8 has been, Indicator 8 and 14 submission has been extended to March 28th.
There was another question about whether or not the Table 5 report would be pulled directly from PowerSchool again this year.
Yes,
And-
that information is coming directly from PowerSchool. Districts don't have to submit anything to us. Okay. Seems like we don't have any questions, or if you guys don't feel comfortable asking questions on this platform, once again, please feel free to send questions to the Special Education Services email folder, or to Avine at the Discipline email folder. I'm going to actually add it in the chat so that if you have questions, you could send those questions directly to us.
All right, Carolyn, if there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay.